Welcome to the Hot News Channel, where we strip away the noise to analyze today's breaking stories. It is February 13th, 2026.
And let me tell you, the noise today it's deafening. We're looking at a landscape that isn't just a busy news cycle. It is a convergence.
A convergence, I like that word for it.
Yeah, we're seeing global military escalation colliding head-on with a domestic institutional collapse. If you're feeling a sense of vertigo this morning, you are not alone.
Vertigo is exactly the right word. We have so much to get through today. I mean, we're talking about a potential war in the Middle East that it increasingly looks like a trap.
A very sophisticated trap.
And at the same time, a bizarre shutdown of American airspace that involves high-tech lasers and, I can't even believe I'm saying this, balloons.
Right. And then you have the congressional hearing that has just left the nation completely stunned.
It's a lot to connect.
Well, that's the game changer. See, while the public is distracted by all the political theater in D.C., the geopolitical tectonic plates have shifted right under our feet.
And how's that?
The United States is reportedly preparing a second aircraft carrier for deployment against Iran. But the intelligence we're seeing suggests this isn't 2003. This is a trap set by a new triad of power: Russia, China, and Iran.
A triad. And while that massive international story is looming here at home, the FAA shuts down airspace over El Paso, Texas, for a national security threat.
A threat that turned out to be something else entirely.
A symbol of government incompetence. And if that wasn't enough chaos for 1 week, the Attorney General Pam Bondi is under immense fire for what our sources are calling a massive cover-up of the Epstein files.
And it all connects. Our mission today is to pull on these seemingly disparate threats: the Middle East buildup, the border incompetence, and the deep state secrets that are bleeding out of these Epstein hearings, to show you the reality of the current administration's very, very precarious position.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start with the biggest story on the map right now, the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Specifically, the meeting that just happened at the White House between President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The meeting that was supposed to clarify everything and instead just left us all in the dark.
Exactly. I mean, let's look at the facts here. According to reports from the Associated Press and also from Roll Call, this meeting on February 11th lasted nearly 3 hours.
3 hours? That's a long time for two leaders to be in a room.
A very long time. It was entirely behind closed doors. And here is the kicker, the part that has everyone talking. It ended with no joint statement.
Nothing.
No press conference, no photo op in the Oval, just silence.
That is a massive, massive departure from diplomatic norms. I mean, think about it. When a close ally like Israel, especially the prime minister, comes to the White House.
Hardly a whole production.
It's a whole production.
Yeah.
You get the Rose Garden ceremony. You get the handshake for the cameras. You get the we stand shoulder-to-shoulder speech. To have 3 hours of closed-door discussion followed by radio silence. That screams disagreement. It absolutely screams.
So we have to piece together what that disagreement might be about. And we do have some clues.
We do.
President Trump took to Truth Social after the meeting. He posted, and I'm quoting here, that he had a very good meeting, but then he explicitly stated that he insisted on negotiations with Iran to see if a deal can be consummated.
Okay, consummated. Interesting choice of words.
It is. He goes on to say, if it can, I let the prime minister know that it will be a preference.
A preference. That's diplomatic code. That's him saying, I am not giving you the green light to start a war just yet. It's a yellow light at best.
But all the reporting suggests Netanyahu is pushing for a military solution. He wants a green light.
He's desperate for it. And the analysis we're seeing, including from people like Colonel Douglas Macgregor and others, suggests that Netanyahu is looking for a way to drag the U.S. into a conflict. Why? Because Israel's own defenses, especially their air defenses, are reaching a breaking point.
So they can't sustain a long conflict on their own.
They absolutely cannot handle a long war of attrition against Iran's ballistic missile capabilities. They can't do it. They need the U.S. to take out the threat for them. That's what this visit was about. It was about getting that commitment. And that word, preference, tells us he didn't get it.
Okay, but here's the contradiction. Despite Trump's words on social media about wanting a deal, the hard data on the ground, it tells a completely different story.
100%.
The physical pieces are moving into place for war, regardless of any preference.
This is the number one rule of this kind of analysis. Look at where the ships are moving, not what the politicians are typing on their phone.
Right. So the Wall Street Journal is reporting that the Pentagon has ordered a second carrier strike group to prepare to deploy.
A second one.
And they're saying this is likely the USS George H.W. Bush, which would join the USS Abraham Lincoln, which is already in the region. That puts 2 full carrier strike groups in the theater.
Okay, stop right there. Let's be very clear for everyone listening. 2 carrier strike groups is not a defensive posture. It's not a deterrent. 2 carrier groups is an invasion force. That is an offensive posture. You don't park 2 of your most powerful assets in the Persian Gulf or the Arabian Sea just for a diplomatic preference. That's a signal that you're preparing for a major military operation. And
it's not just ships. The flight tracking data is it's lighting up. We're seeing a massive movement of air power.
What are we seeing specifically?
F-35A stealth fighters from the Vermont National Guard have relocated. They've been tracked routing through Europe, heading to the Middle East.
F-35, the tip of the spear.
Exactly. And we're also seeing F-15E Strike Eagles moving to Muwafaq Salti Air Base in Jordan.
So deep strike aircraft, not just fighters for patrol.
And it's not just the U.S. British Eurofighter Typhoons are also deploying, heading to Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. The whole coalition is moving.
So this completely, utterly contradicts Trump's public rhetoric about wanting a deal. The gears of the military-industrial complex are churning. They're moving. But here is where it gets really interesting and, frankly, absolutely terrifying.
Go on.
This is not the Middle East of 2013 or even 2020. The United States is walking into a battle space that has been fundamentally altered by what I've been calling the Eastern Bloc response.
And by that, you're talking about the hidden truth, the part of the story that seems to be completely missing from most of the mainstream coverage.
Exactly. The central fact is this: Iran is not isolated anymore.
Far from it, based on these reports.
Far from it. We have to look at the reporting from analysts like Pepe Escobar and also sources we have that are close to the Russian Duma. They're indicating that Russia has moved a contingent of 5,000 troops closer to the Iranian border.
And what kind of troops are we talking about?
This isn't just infantry. We believe these are air defense specialists, the people who operate the most sophisticated anti-air systems Russia has.
And it's not just boots on the ground, right? It's about technology.
It's all about the tech transfer. That's the real game changer. Russia is reportedly providing Iran with advanced electronic jammers. We've even heard reports that the Murmansk BN system could potentially be in play.
Now, explain what that system does. What is its impact?
Okay, so these are systems designed to do one thing: create chaos for Western smart weapons. They can scramble GPS signals, they disrupt satellite communications, and they can deflect U.S.-guided missiles. So think about it. If the U.S. launches a multi-million-dollar Tomahawk cruise missile and the GPS guidance system is jammed,
It's useless.
it becomes a very, very expensive lawn dart. It has no idea where it's going. All of that technological superiority we rely on just evaporates.
And then there's the other piece of this new triad: China.
Yes. And this is the part of the story that really stood out to me: the naval movements.
China has deployed destroyers, and get this, the ocean #1 research vessel to the Arabian Sea.
Research vessel is such a polite term, isn't it?
It's a bit of an understatement.
Yeah. That ship is a signals intelligence vacuum cleaner. It's designed to listen to everything, to suck up every electronic emission in the region. But it's what it's doing with that information that matters.
And sources are saying they're integrating their radar grid with Iran's
Yes.
to provide real-time satellite tracking of the U.S. Navy.
Okay, just stop and think about the implications of that for a second. For decades, the U.S. Navy has relied on stealth and the vastness of the ocean. The idea was they don't know exactly where a carrier group is at any given moment.
That advantage is now gone.
It's completely neutralized. You now have Chinese satellites, which are very sophisticated, providing real-time, up-to-the-minute targeting data directly to Iranian anti-ship missile batteries on the coast.
So in a potential conflict,
the U.S. isn't just fighting Iran. They are fighting against Russian electronic warfare that can blind our missiles, and they're fighting against Chinese satellite intelligence that can pinpoint our ships. This makes a limited strike, the kind of thing politicians love to talk about, completely impossible. If we launch, they see it coming, and they can jam its guidance system on the way in.
it sounds less like a conflict and more like a checkmate situation.
It's a trap. That's why I called it the game changer at the top. The U.S. is being baited into a conflict where its traditional technological superiority is being systematically neutralized by the combined weight of the East. They spent the last decade preparing for this exact scenario.
And while all this military hardware is moving around, There's a frantic diplomatic hustle happening in the background.
Yes, and we need to watch that closely, too.
Ali Larijani, who is a senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader, has been, well, he's been everywhere. He's been shuttling constantly between Damascus, Beirut, and Moscow.
Larijani is the architect. He's the man who puts the deals together for the resistance axis's diplomatic strategy. And his trips to Moscow are the key. He isn't just going there for tea and pleasantries.
He's there to finalize something.
He is cementing a defense pact. The unseen deal here, the handshake agreement that's happening behind the scenes, is likely a guarantee from Russia and China of Iran's economic and military survival.
So what does that guarantee look like in practice?
It means that if the U.S. strikes Iran, the Strait of Hormuz closes. That's the trigger.
And if the strait closes, the global economy feels that instantly.
Instantly and catastrophically. Roughly 20% of the world's entire oil supply stops moving. Overnight, oil prices would skyrocket to $200, maybe $300 a barrel. The global economy would collapse into a depression.
And for a Trump presidency that is so focused on the stock market,
Which, as we'll get to later regarding Pam Bondi, is the only metric they seem to care about. This is the ultimate deterrent. It's a checkmate move. They're telling him, you can start a war, but your entire economic legacy will be destroyed in a matter of hours.
So just to sum up this first segment, we have a massive military buildup that looks like war,
Check.
a public diplomatic track that looks like a stall tactic,
Check.
and a behind-the-scenes geopolitical alliance that looks like an impenetrable fortress.
Precisely. And while the administration is staring down the barrel of this incredibly complex gun in the Middle East, the domestic situation is getting equally, if not more, bizarre.
Which brings us to El Paso, Texas.
Oh, the El Paso incident. I mean, if you wrote this in a movie script, the producers would reject it. They'd say it was too unbelievable.
Let's just walk through the facts as we know them. The FAA abruptly, with almost no warning, issued a 10-day no-fly zone over El Paso.
A TFR, a temporary flight restriction.
Yes, and the reason given was a national security threat. Now, this wasn't a small restriction over some empty desert. This halted all commercial traffic in and out of El Paso International Airport. It stopped medevac flights from reaching hospitals.
Imagine being on the ground in El Paso for a moment. You look up, and the sky is empty, your flight is canceled, you hear rumors. What do you think?
You think the worst. Is it a cartel invasion? Is there some kind of terrorist threat? Did they find a dirty bomb? The panic on the ground was real.
Absolutely. And the official narrative from Washington only made things more confusing.
Initially, the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, came out and claimed that they had successfully neutralized a cartel drone incursion.
Cartel drone incursion. It sounds tough, doesn't it? It sounds like the government is in control, taking action, securing the border.
A very strong, decisive statement. But then, the cracks in that story started to appear almost immediately.
They did.
We have reports that the Mexican president, Claudia Sheinbaum, was asked about this major international incident on her border. And she had absolutely no knowledge of any cartel drones.
She flat out denied the U.S. claims. Her office basically said, we don't know what they're talking about. We didn't see anything.
So right away, you have the U.S. government claiming a major invasion of its airspace that its next-door neighbor, the country where the invasion supposedly came from, says didn't happen.
That's the first huge red flag, a story that doesn't line up.
So then we start digging into our sources, specifically reports from outlets like Dropsite News and some insiders we have in the aviation industry, and the hidden truth starts to come out. And it wasn't cartels, it was. It was just staggering incompetence.
This is where the story veers into Keystone Cops territory. It's almost comical if it weren't so dangerous.
The story is that the Pentagon had reportedly transferred experimental directed energy weapons to Customs and Border Protection.
Okay, let's pause there. Directed energy weapons, we're talking about lasers, military-grade lasers.
Yes, high-powered laser systems.
Now, why on earth you would give experimental military-grade laser weapons to a civilian law enforcement agency like CBP without massive oversight and strict rules of engagement is, well, it's a question for another day. But please, continue.
So, citing these insiders, CBP agents on the ground saw something on their scopes. They used this new high-tech laser to shoot down an object that they thought was a threat.
And they engaged this target
Where?
over some empty patch of desert?
No, over a populated area, very near an international airport with active flight paths.
Unbelievable. So what was this major national security threat, this cartel drone? What was the target?
A party balloon.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
A party balloon. Specifically, a helium birthday-style Mylar balloon.
No, you're kidding me.
That's what the sources are saying.
So, they shut down the airspace of a major American city. They disrupted critical medical flights. They caused a national security panic because someone with a laser pointer on steroids got trigger-happy with a birthday balloon from a kid's party.
That appears to be the reality of the situation. And our sources describe the aftermath as just complete chaos. The FAA slammed on the brakes and shut down the airspace, not because of an enemy threat, but because they suddenly realized that the military and CDP were firing high-powered lasers into commercial flight paths without telling anyone.
It paints a picture of a government completely at war with itself.
Yeah.
You have the Pentagon giving these weapons to CBP. You have CBP firing them without telling the FAA. Then the FAA hits the panic button and shuts everything down. And then the Transportation Secretary goes on national television to blame the cartels to cover it all up.
It is, as one source described it to us, the gang that couldn't shoot straight.
It absolutely obliterates public confidence in these institutions, doesn't it? If they can't tell the difference between a party balloon and a cartel drone over Texas, how in the world are we supposed to trust their assessment of, say, Iranian nuclear capabilities?
That is a genuinely terrifying question. And speaking of trust and the competence of our institutions, we have to talk about what happened this week in the House Judiciary Committee.
Yes. The main event for so many people.
The hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi regarding the release or non-release of the Epstein files.
This was a moment people have been waiting for years. The Epstein scandal has been this festering wound in the American psyche. People wanted answers. They wanted answers. They wanted accountability.
Instead, they got what you described earlier as theatrical.
It was worse than theatrical. It was a national embarrassment.
Yeah.
It was a deliberate, calculated performance designed to obscure the truth.
Well, let's recount the moment that went viral, the moment that everyone is talking about, the Dow Jones defense.
I still can't believe it happened.
Lawmakers, particularly Congressman Jamie Raskin, were pressing Bondi on a very specific, very important point. The failure of her department to properly redact victim names, while at the same time seemingly going to great lengths to redact the names of perpetrators and powerful associates.
Which is a valid, crucial question. It goes to the very heart of how the Department of Justice is handling these incredibly sensitive files.
And Bondi's response was to pivot. She started shouting, literally shouting, about the stock market.
You did. I watched the whole thing.
She yelled, and this is a direct quote, "The Dow is over 50,000. The S&P is almost 7,000.
Just let that sink in for a moment. You are the chief law enforcement officer of the United States of America. You are under oath before Congress. You are being asked about the state-sanctioned sexual trafficking of children. You are being asked why victim survivors were doxxed, their personal information released by your department. And your defense is, but look at the stock market.
It signals a complete and total disconnect from the issue at hand.
It's more than a disconnect. It signals that the administration prioritizes financial optics over justice for victims. It is the modern version of let them eat cake. In 2026, it's let them eat stocks. It was a deflection tactic so transparent that it was insulting to the intelligence of everyone watching.
And the redaction scandal itself, when you look at the details, is deeply, deeply disturbing.
It's horrifying.
Citing the questioning from Congressman Thomas Massie, who has been a real dog with a bone on this issue for a long time, it was revealed that the DOJ released the unredacted names of victims. Not just their names, in some cases their email addresses.
That's just malpractice. It exposes these women who have already been through hell to harassment, to stalking, to death threats, to who knows what else.
Yet, at the very same time, in the very same document dump, the name of Les Wexner.
The billionaire retail magnate, longtime associate of Epstein.
His name was reportedly redacted 4,000 times.
4,000 times. You don't redact the name 4,000 times by accident. That's not a clerical error. You don't accidentally leave the victims' names exposed while accidentally protecting the billionaire 4,000 times.
So, was this malicious? What is your read on this?
I don't think it was an accident. I think this was what's called a managed drop. This wasn't a data dump for the sake of transparency. It was a data curation. It was information warfare.
With what goal?
2 goals. First, to intimidate the survivors. The message is, look, we know who you are, and we can ruin your life all over again if you talk. And the second goal is to protect the elite. It sends a very clear message up and down the chain. The system protects its own.
There was a moment in that hearing that really highlighted the human cost of all of this. The hearing room was full of survivors of Epstein's network.
Yes. Women who have been waiting in some cases for decades for some form of justice. They were sitting right there in the gallery.
And Attorney General Bondi refused to apologize directly to them. Representative Pramila Jayapal asked her point blank to turn around, look at the women sitting right behind her, and apologize. And Bondi, she wouldn't do it.
She would not turn her body around. She kept her back to them. Eventually, after being pressed repeatedly, she gave some generic legalistic statement like, "I'm sorry for any victim," but in that moment, she refused to acknowledge their presence, their pain, their humanity.
Why? Why do that?
Because she wasn't testifying for the American people. She wasn't testifying for Congress. She wasn't even testifying for the victims. She was performing for an audience of one.
President Trump.
Exactly. Our sources suggest she is acting not as the nation's attorney general, but as his personal defense attorney.
Yeah.
She knows he watches these hearings. She knows he values loyalty and aggression above all else. In that world, acknowledging failure or showing empathy or apologizing, that's seen as weakness. So she shouted about the Dow, and she ignored the women crying behind her.
It's a very stark assessment of the situation. But if we dig deeper, beyond just the political theater of the hearing, the Epstein story itself gets much, much darker.
Oh, much darker. And this is where we have to leave the scandal narrative behind and start looking at the structure narrative. This isn't just about sex trafficking. It's about intelligence, it's about blackmail, and it's about biotechnology.
Okay, let's break that down. Let's start with the intelligence nexus. We've seen emails referenced in these files where Epstein himself admits that he worked for the Rothschilds. We know about his extensive and very strange interactions with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak.
We have to stop thinking about Epstein as just a sleazy financier who went rogue. The picture the sources paint is of a man who's a deeply embedded asset in the intelligence world. He wasn't just collecting blackmail material for his own personal kicks. He was collecting it for leverage. State-level leverage.
And one of the sources we looked at highlights Epstein's direct involvement with signal intelligence and his attempts to recruit former NSA hackers.
Right. And you have to ask yourself, why does a money manager from New York need his own team of NSA-level hackers? Why is he obsessed with breaking codes and data mining? It doesn't fit the public profile.
And that leads us to the most bizarre and frankly disturbing aspect of these files, the biohacking and eugenics angle.
This is the Manhattan Project of the 21st century that absolutely no one is talking about. It's happening right under our noses.
We know Epstein purchased a huge ranch in New Mexico, the Zorro Ranch. But the stated goal, according to documents and testimony in these files, was to use it as a base for seeding the human race.
And conducting genetic experiments. He wanted to impregnate multiple women at a time. He wanted to clone himself. He wanted to perfect the human genome. This is textbook eugenics, plain and simple.
And this wasn't some crackpot theory he was working on in a vacuum. He was funding legitimate mainstream science to this end.
Absolutely. He was pouring money into Martin Nowak's evolutionary dynamics program at Harvard. He funded labs at MIT. The stated goal was transhumanism, the idea of using artificial intelligence and genetic engineering to create a new, superior human.
And this philosophy, it's not on the fringe, is it?
Not at all. This philosophy that there is a superior class of human that deserves to rule and perhaps even live forever through technology is widely shared by many Silicon Valley elites. It connects directly to the Peter Thiel wing of the tech world, the obsession with life extension and cognitive enhancement.
So connect all these dots for us, the trafficking, the intelligence, the eugenics. Why are these files being so heavily guarded?
Because if you really pull the string on the Epstein case, you don't just find a few politicians and princes having affairs. You unravel the very origins of the modern surveillance state. You find the roots of modern data mining.
What do you mean?
Our sources claim that companies we use every day, Facebook, LinkedIn, even Palantir, have some of their ideological and financial roots in DARPA research that Epstein was either funding or connected to through his network. The files are hidden not just to protect blackmail victims, but to protect the origin story of the tech revolution itself. They're hidden because they reveal that much of it was, in part, an intelligence operation designed to map, monitor, and ultimately control the human population.
That is a heavy thing to contemplate.
It's the architecture of control. And Epstein wasn't just a user of that architecture, he was one of its builders.
Okay, so we've covered the trap being set in the Middle East. We've covered the stunning domestic incompetence in El Paso. And we've covered the dark underbelly of the Epstein and intelligence world. But there is one more major piece on the global chessboard that we cannot ignore.
The silent defeat.
The collapse of the Ukraine front. While all American eyes are focused on Iran and on Washington, D.C., the war in Ukraine is quietly ending.
And it is ending in a total, unambiguous Russian victory.
Let's just look at the hard data here. Our analysis shows U.S. military aid to Ukraine dropped by 99% in the year 2025.
99% fell off a cliff.
Europe tried to step in and fill the gap, but even with their contributions, total aid is down by 13%.
And you simply cannot fight a war of attrition against an industrial superpower like Russia when your supply lines are cut by 99%. It is a mathematical impossibility.
And the result on the ground is that Russia is winning decisively on the battlefield. The Ukrainian energy grid is effectively gone. They have no power.
And because Russia senses this total victory is at hand, all the negotiations are stalled. Why would they negotiate for a piece of the country when they believe they're about to win the whole thing? They have no incentive.
But here is the critical connection we need to make for our listeners. How does this collapse in Eastern Europe tie back to the rising tensions in the Middle East?
Because Russia's new confidence in Ukraine allows them to pivot their resources. They don't need to keep every spare S-400 system and every electronic warfare jammer on the Ukrainian border anymore. That front is stabilizing in their favor.
So they can move those assets elsewhere.
They can move those high-value resources, like those 5,000 air defense troops we discussed, and the advanced electronic warfare tech south, to Iran.
So the failure of Western policy in Ukraine is actually fueling the danger and the technological sophistication of the enemy in the Middle East.
Exactly. It's all one interconnected board. The U.S. is completely overextended. We are trying to manage a collapsing front in Europe and at the same time a rising technologically advanced front in the Middle East. And all of this is happening while the domestic leadership is distracted by covering up decades-old files and shooting down party balloons with military lasers.
It's the definition of a perfect storm.
It is a convergence of failure on every single level.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. It is February 13th, 2026. We have a government using experimental lasers to shoot down balloons and shutting down major cities.
Unbelievable.
We have the nation's top law enforcement officer shouting about stock prices to avoid discussing child sex trafficking with victims sitting 10 feet behind her.
A dereliction of duty.
We have a military walking into what looks like a sophisticated trap in the Persian Gulf, facing a unified and technologically capable front of Russia, China, and Iran.
A trap they've been setting for a decade.
And we have a silent defeat in Ukraine that is reshaping the entire map of global power.
The bottom line is this. The institutions are not just failing. In some cases, they appear to be actively working against the truth. The global order is being reshaped in real time by the Russia-China-Iran alliance, and the U.S. leadership seems utterly paralyzed by its own cover-ups and its own incompetence.
So after this entire deep dive, what is the one thing you think our listener needs to take away from all this? The one thing they need to remember for the rest of the week?
The one thing you need to remember this week is this. The chaos isn't accidental. It's not a series of unfortunate events. Whether it's the carefully redacted files or the deafening silence on the real Iran buildup, the confusion is the strategy. So don't look at what they say, don't listen to the speeches, look at where the ships are moving.
That is a chilling thought, but a necessary one. If you found this analysis valuable, hit the plus or follow button on your podcast app and give us a like. Subscribe to the Hot News channel for more deep dives. Until we meet again, goodbye.